Hey there everybody, it's Charles Snowman here with another BLT recap and analysis video because it is Monday and that means more BLT content. Um, and this is going to be the last week of actual like recap and analysis. Next week I might do a recap video depending on like how I'm feeling and whatnot about BLT and whatnot. And so this week we're going to be going through the tiebreakers for the semifinals and then the predictions for the finals. And then we can be straight up transitioning into TLT content because TLT will actually be beginning next week. And I'll be doing a video about TLT for those of you who are interested in that, because I know that there's going to be more people who are going to be kind of going into TLT from like outside of the community because of the kind of rewards and different things that are going on with this event. So I'm going to be really excited for that, and I'm going to be working hard to make sure it goes smoothly as well, along with all the other people involved. So without further ado, let's go and talk about all of the matches that happened last week, 5 of them. The first one, well, I won't be going through them chronologically, just as how they're listed. So GXC versus Ham. This match was I would say it was pretty one-sided. I think Ham basically, like, they both brought relatively standard-looking teams to PEX, different PEX, glide score, that kind of standard balance stuff. What really tipped the scales was Ham had Megalodios, which has often been a mon that has like dominated those kind of matchups because it's excellent coverage and ability to recover on a lot of the mons that kind of are in on those types of teams. Like stuff like Toxapex and Gliscor are kind of just bait for Latios to roost on, and then it threatens a lot of them back with just a standard set of like Psychic, Earthquake, Ice Beam, which is what it was running. And Ham was managed to use kind of Latios's pressure to kind of close out the game very easily because it provided so much like threat to everything on GXC's team, and GXC wasn't able to threaten it appropriately. And Ham just won a relatively slow-paced game in a very methodical fashion. And it's basically what we've come to expect. I think Ham has shown the mastery to be able to play these slower matchups where he has the advantage in terms of matchup. And this is basically what we expect, and why I believe that Heatrans are so strong, and why I believe that they would win this tiebreaker, because him and Frisso also has Frisso also has like a lot of that mastery as well. Frisso, however, didn't win that way. He won mostly, in my opinion at least, due to kind of creative team building, and that a lot has to do with the Jordan support I talked about before. The Electrium Z Silvally normal, which put in a lot of work eliminating Blastoise, and having a lot of different kind of techs, and was able to basically ride that to the end with it was actually a very, very close game, because in the end it came down to kind of a last hit situation. A Life Orb Comfy only was managed to do 22% to a Delmise, which I believe was probably pretty heavily invested in special defense, and the Delmise was at like 25%. So it was a very narrow victory. So there were, if not for that like 3% live, then it could have been a game that Snowfall won. So it was very, very close. But Frisso managed to take it. This was basically one of the best games, in my opinion, of the entire like tournament so far, because it showcased a lot of like what makes both players good. The team building aspects of their Heatrans, and the Frisso's ability to kind of utilize them correctly, especially with the Silvally normal tech. And then the ability for Snowfall to kind of play out of a bad situation into almost being able to bring it back. It was very close at the end. There wasn't that much else that Snowfall could have done and at the end game, so it wasn't like a misplay or anything. But I did really, really enjoy this match because I thought it was very, very good. And I hope to see more of this kind of match in the future, or in the finals, because this is kind of like the match that I really want to see. And with that, those two matches, the Heatrans took the series, and as I predicted as well, Arsenal did take the win over Terracotta. Arsenal going undefeated, being a huge performance here at BLT. This one I would say has the most kind of like asterisk next to it for his wins. He had a lot of tough opponents throughout, and in this one, his win I wouldn't say is a lot. I wouldn't say is like solely attributed to, but Terracotta did make a mistake because he was supposed to bring Drought on his Ninetales, but without the Drought, it was a huge difference because obviously Ninetales about like a lot of its power comes from Drought as it boosts the fire type moves by 1.5 times, but it's not only that because um, the 1.5 times is extra magnified even more with the nasty plot sets because like it reaches certain breakpoints that are very important, and because of the fact that he wasn't able to use the extra breakpoints because you know he didn't have Drought on accident, it made a huge difference throughout the course of the game, and Arsenal won a very one-sided game. However, the final result shouldn't fool you because if Terracotta had Drought, then the swing that he would have had on the turns that he had the like Ninetales with the Fiery MZ could have allowed him to actually get to the point where the game was close enough for him to win. So although it does look like Arsenal very much dominated this match, I would say that this one kind of has an asterisk next to it because there is the possibility that this game could have turned around with the Drought ability. That said, though, I don't want to take anything away from Arsenal, and that's not to say that even if Terracotta had Drought, that he would have won. But it does mean that it's not like a super clean win. But that said, I still want to say congratulations to Arsenal for such a great season because he has had one of the best performances in BLT as like to this point. And I would say Ham would probably be the other standout, but that's more of an expected result rather than Arsenal, who has had a fantastic run kind of as an underdog or like not perceived as like a top player. And in the other one, basically what I expected, the Swampers took 2 of the 3 games pretty cleanly, and the one that I would say they could have potentially taken, the Blastoises that is, would have been OU. I think and Havens and Bad Player would have been an interesting match to see. But the other 2 matches that had already happened before with LC, Jack in My Box, was cleanly defeated by Omnis Draco. I think he made a few misplays. I think he gave up some mons too early. Specifically, he gave up his Pharaoh very early in the game. If I remember correctly, I think I'm talking about the right match. Yeah. I believe it was this match that he gave up his Pharaoh very early in the game, which was actually a very pivotal mon that he could have used to kind of actually, let's just check to make sure I'm talking about the right match. I don't want to be spreading false information. Yeah, it is the right match. So basically, I think a lot of what it came down to was like, I think that this kind of play where you give up the mon early has a lot to do with like a lack of understanding of the late game or not really thinking that far ahead, which is very common to see actually, like just in general. I think it's like a huge mistake that a lot of people will make, including myself, which I'm not going to say that everyone. It's easier to say these things as a spectator, but when you're playing the game, you kind of have different thoughts about like how to play the game and whatnot. But as a spectator, it's easier to say that kind of stuff. But he gave up a pivotal mon early on, and he just had to play from behind the entire game. And Draco managed to kind of capitalize on this and just take an easy win, basically just off of playing solid, and because he had such a big lead from the early turns. And the doubles match, I've talked about a lot about like throughout this entire BLT about my beliefs on like doubles in general. And I think this match also capitalized a lot on what I believe, with CTTX basically taking a very solid win. This one was actually the first match that happened, but I'll talk a little bit more about this match just because I feel like this represents a lot of what I believe in doubles right now. So just from team preview, you can already see what I mean because like if you look at this team, there's 3 Pokemon that are weak to rocks: Araquanid, uh, Incineroar, and Kyurem Black. And then you can see that Mew pretty much will always get free rocks here, which is basically the assumption here. And the reason why this is important is because it means that it's on Xskelly to win this match. By that I mean it's very much in favor of TTTX when the game goes even slightly long. So it's heavily on Xskelly to like make plays early on in the game and force down like the game, because if he doesn't, then the game is just going to end with TTX just winning the long game. And it's because of that you can see Mons um like you have to already like be looking in favor of TTTX just by matchup, because you know that if rocks come down, which they generally will in the early turns, because Mew is very hard to stop from setting rocks, then the Kartana is also really, really threatening, because you see that the only answer to Kartana is really the Incineroar and then maybe the Coco. But if Coco, like if the terrain gets reset, then Coco's won't be able to even deal damage to the Kartana. And then it walls like all of this. Like it walls um, the Araquanid, it walls the Bulu, it walls the Metagross, and then the Kyurem, it doesn't wall, but at the same time, the Kyurem is threatened out by the Kartana as well. So it's very dangerous already. So you can see from the matchup, and this is like a lot of what I talk about when I mean hazards are so important in doubles, right? So the one mon that can kind of turn this around is like the Araquanid has generally will be running webs. And then with webs up, then you can see kind of how much damage that the Kyurem can potentially do. But like the double intimidate cycle with the Feeny, or Feeny being like a solid answer already to Kyurem, like, and the fact that rocks is so much better than webs in general, it kind of forces Xskelly into a position where he's almost always going to be losing this game unless he plays exceptionally well. And that's what I mean a lot of times when I talk about kind of how matchup in doubles is very, very important, and understanding what the meta is and how to play around it is very important. So it's not that important, in my opinion, to always just play the meta, because I think in doubles there's like a very, very large amount of Pokemon that can be relevant in the doubles tier, much more than in most singles tiers. Like I would say there's at least like 50 to 60 Pokemon that you can viably use without like trolling. Um, but the point is, it's not about playing the meta, it's about kind of understanding what the meta is and then playing around it. So if the meta, right, which right now it is Stealth Rock plus kind of boosters and heavy intimidate cycling and like strong individual mons, and being able to abuse hazards very well, stuff like Zygarde, Kartana, Latias, like that kind of stuff being very, very good in the game. You don't have to play that style, but you have to be able to be willing to answer that style in some way. So if you know that like that type of style is good, you can't be bringing a team that's so weak to Stealth Rocks that you basically just auto lose from preview, because like this kind of team being common means that you at least have to be willing to answer it. So for example, a way that you could answer it would be like say defog on Coco, or have some way of preventing the hazard from coming up, like pressuring the hazard setter very heavily or something along those lines. But this kind of team that Xskelly is bringing is a very old style team. It's kind of a transition point of doubles, where this was before Stealth Rocks became extremely common, and where people were kind of realizing hazards had a lot of place in the metagame, because this was basically when Araquanid kind of was introduced as being a prevalent mon, because of sticky webs being potentially very powerful. And because of that, you can kind of see where the weaknesses come from and where the strengths of the team is. Like this team would be good if it was like a year and a half ago or whatever, when this team was meta. Like this would have been a good team to bring, but it's different now. And it's very important that you play to what the current meta is. And that is not saying that you should play the current meta. You don't have to be bringing kind of stealth rock stuff, but you can't be bringing stuff that's just straight up weak to it. So that's why kind of like my thing, and this doesn't like have to do with only doubles, but I think it's most exemplified in doubles in BLT because it has like a lot of the mistakes, in my opinion, from kind of doubles players or slash like people who have been playing doubles in BLT have come from this. And this is especially prevalent because doubles is so different from singles tiers um, that like and it's been rapidly changing. So people who kind of have dabbled in doubles like in the past 2 years or whatever may come back to it and kind of see a completely different scene. And I can say this kind of as someone who is more in tune with doubles than like the average person. I've kind of played a lot of different tournaments for doubles and been in contact with some of the better doubles players, kind of just playing the tier on a more casual level as well. So with that said, let's that is basically my wrap up for the tiebreakers. I think I was like very accurate actually in my prediction video, so it's probably like a first, honestly. But let's move into the finals because I think this is what most people are interested in seeing. So we'll start off with Pidgeot Mega versus Richard Pepper. I think Pidgeot Mega has had kind of a average season. Like I wouldn't say it's bad, but he hasn't stood out to me as being like amazing. But Richard Pepper has been very good, and I've kind of underrated him coming into the season, kind of, or not necessarily underrated him coming into the season, but I've kind of didn't. He performed much better than my expectations, at least, and he's often been able to take wins off of better players or what I perceive to be better players. So I would say that he's definitely a favorite here in Ubers, and I would say 60-40 to Richard Pepper, and that's a lot to do with like respecting how well he's performed throughout the entire tournament. In OU, Brocco won versus Lugia Numer. Lugia Numer, I don't think is that good of a player. He hasn't shown me much to really say that, like for me to be able to say that. And Brocco 1, I think, is a sub because one of the Swampert's players got banned for various other reasons, which I won't get into. But I believe Brocco 1 is going to be is a very, very good player. He's most known for actually bringing Mono Ice. I don't know what type of team he's going to be bringing, but I have a lot of confidence in him to play just like at a high level. But I do have some doubts about him because I don't see him play standard teams very much, and I don't know how well he's going to be able to perform on this kind of stage. With that said, I'm still going to favor him 55-45 over Lugia Numer, who hasn't shown me that much. In Yu-Gi-Oh, it's Kaiser versus Terracotta. I think it's kind of interesting that Terracotta is playing Yu-Gi-Oh here. He's played like a variety of different tiers throughout this tournament. And he's going up against Kather, who has had kind of a middle of the pack kind of performance for Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, definitely has had some good wins and has lost to some good players as well. I do think that Terracotta is a bit better at like just generally. And I would favor him probably 60-40 over Kather here. The highlight match of this week is definitely in RU, the Welsh Wall versus Ham. I believe the Welsh Wall is X1. I'm not exactly sure, but I believe he only has one loss to Ars9. And then Ham is undefeated right now, but he's been playing a bunch of different stuff. I do think RU is actually one of, if not his best tier, I believe it is one of his best tiers, Ham that is. And I do think that he can show up at a high level in this game. I think I would still have to favor Ham. I think he's been playing at a much higher level. But I do think this is going to be very close, and it's going to be the one that I think really dictates the tone of this series because I think Ham winning would be a huge boon, and him losing would be a huge blow to the Heatrans and their chance of winning the entire thing. In NU, bad player versus and I would say Ham 55-45 over the wash wall. In NU, bad player versus DJ Illuminati. I still haven't been impressed with Spitfire Arcanine's performance throughout this entire tournament. I think he's kind of been lacking in a lot of different respects. And I think that Bad Player has had a very good tournament so far. And he's been playing very standard stuff. With his loss last week, it is, or was it last week or 2 weeks ago, to Principal Tacos? Um, that with that being his only loss, I do still see him as being like very good. And I mean, I think that Bad Player is going to be favored in this match, probably 60-40 over DJ Illuminati. I think Spitfire Arcanine has just had kind of a subpar tournament so far, and I've had seen more from Bad Player to kind of been convinced that they are a better, like, that they're going to be favored in this match. In PU, it's going to be Omnis Draco versus V. And this will be also one of the matches I'm going to personally be looking out for, with Omnis Draco playing very well throughout this entire tournament, with his only loss being to Ziri, I believe. I might be wrong on that. I haven't fact checked that, but he has been playing very well, including the tiebreaker win last week. Versus V, who has also been having a very good tournament. After the initial week 1 loss, I think he's been performing very well throughout the entirety of the weeks, and I've been very impressed in his wins, just by like his like play with his doubles and his kind of ability to be aggressive, which a lot of players don't show. So I think that this one will still be in favor of Omnis Draco, who I believe is going to be a better player overall, has more experience and whatnot. But I do think that V is like very good and can give him a run for his money. But I'll say 55-45 to Omnis Draco here. One of the more interesting matches, I believe. And then the most one-sided match of this week is definitely an LC, Halamon versus Frisso. And I think Frisso is going to dominate this one very easily. This one is definitely the only match in this entire week that I really believe is definitely going to one player, and that is this one. And I'm going to be favoring Frisso 90-10. I don't think there's any way that Halamon wins this, especially with a very subpar performance from Halamon throughout this entire tournament as well. So with and then doubles, TTTX versus Shadow Monster. TTTX has been like completely destroying it. He's been basically everything that he's been drafted up to be. His only loss being to SMB, which is no surprise because I believe SMB is still the one of like the best players that you could possibly have. But TTTX definitely has been like proving his price and been very, very good. TTTX is definitely favored here. And I would say this one will be 65-35 in his favor. Despite Shadow Monster being like pretty good, I think that it's really to a different level. I don't think that this week he'll have kind of the advantage of team building, because Frisso is a top, like a good doubles builder. However, I don't believe that Shadow Monster has what it takes to outplay TTTX. And unless he gets like a monster matchup, I think that this will go to TTTX, who has shown me that not only can he build at a high level, which was basically my question mark for him coming into this tournament, that he can also play at a high level, which is very, very important in the doubles tier. So with that, that's really like all of that I have to say about the matchups here. But that means that I favor like 4 on each side, and that means I believe that this will go to a tiebreaker. If there is a tiebreaker, then I'm going to be doing another video, of course. But if not, then I'll be seeing you guys after this to kind of maybe break down all the matches, especially the interesting ones. And then also be doing more TLT content, because that's going to be coming up soon. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you guys liked this video, then leave a like and subscribe. And if you didn't, then I don't know why you're watching it this far anyway. So whatever. And I'll see you guys next time for more BLT or TLT content. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed.